It's July 25th, 2001. This is the first tape for Earl Bennett on the Atlanta Abandoned Mine Lands project. We're looking off into the Yuba River drainage. Decker Creek is the one that would flow off to that one right at the bottom of the hill here off to the left. The Yuba River is the one that flows off to the south. We're at our very first prospect, which we're going to call B725-0101. It's at about 7,000 feet elevation, and there was a small adit up here. We're up on a drill road that was put in by Atlanta Gold, or one of its predecessors. You can see the white color of the dump right there. The adit is totally gone. There's no sign of it. It would have been right over there behind that tree. And much of the work in here has been disturbed by the drilling roads. This is a drilling road, comes right in off the top of the ridge, and this whole area is totally honeycombed with these things. Now off to the distance there along the hillside, you can see an old road in there. We're going to go down and walk that one down out around to the point out there, and we think that goes out to a prospect down there on the other end of that point. You can see the devastation from the big burn that they had in here, which almost took out Atlanta. We're on the south side of what's called Atlanta Hill. It's just a kind of a round hill in here, bracketed by the middle fork of the Boise River to the north, and Decker Creek to the south, Yuba River over onto the west, and Montezuma Creek over onto the east. And we're just kind of giving you an idea of what the area in here would look like. There's nothing much to say about this prospect. Now you can see down below there's another set of drill roads that were put in. We don't think there's any more adits on this particular area, but as I said, we're going to take a stroll on out there and see what's down around the other side there, and before we come on back up the hill while we're here. So with that, we'll go back and we'll take a look at the burn area out there and fade on out of this first property. It has no name as far as we know. It's July 25th, 2001. This is one of probably the main adit of the series of 4 or 5 adits that's shown on the Atlanta East quadrangle, section 15, about maybe a quarter of a mile due north of Decker Creek. That's right at, there's a 6,800 foot contour line there. Actually, I can probably, if I can get this to focus, show you just about on the map where these babies are. It's that series of 4 right there that we've labeled B0725-0102. Now it's quite possible that 01 is also one of these, but way up higher on the ridge. We're not sure. At any rate, when we take a look, we can see we have a caved adit. There is timbers from the portal are collapsed. There's a seep that's coming out that's made a little wetland, and there's a little pond here, but the water's not flowing, so there's not enough to get a water sample. Now right above this adit is the road that comes down across there. My guess is there may have been another adit which is totally caved right up on the top up in there, where you see that really grusty looking granite, and that this down here is part of the dump from that adit up there, although we see no sign of an adit along the road. If it's there, it's right behind that tree right off the road in that little notch up there, but there's no sign of it anywhere. Now if we stand on the dump from this adit, we're calling this adit 1, even though that may be one up above it. If we take a look, there's another road that comes in. This is probably the main road that came into this adit originally. Continues on across and goes on out to the west. Again, this area that we're looking at here goes down into Decker Creek. You can see the little seep that comes out of this adit. We're just kind of tracking it along and back up to the cave spot. Now, the dump, as we move over to it and take a look, for this property, which we have given the number B25, B725-0102. If we take a look at the dump, we're looking right down the nose of the dump, and you can see the dump from the next adit down below it there. They kind of coalesce, so we'll walk down there and see. Now we won't, if there's an open adit down there, we'll video that spot too. If not, this is what we're going to do with it. You can see that it's got that one little tree growing right out of the middle of it there, which is fairly distinctive. So a pretty big dump in here. We've pasted off, we've got the measurements, and with that we're going to grab a few still pictures. By the way, I should point out, we walked down several hundred feet from the first adit that we mapped 01 way up there on the above that, another layer of drill roads above that one. So this whole area here has been drilled by Atlanta Gold and predecessors. And you can see there's a fallen down claim marker right there laying in the grass. So their maps, I'm sure, have all of this information on it. Anyway, series of 4 adits. There may be more in here. Dumps all seem to be coalescing. We're very old property, obviously, highly overgrown, lots of veggies on it. This water is probably helping that out a fair bit. And with that, we're going to look down at this lower dump down here, and we'll fade out of this first adit. July 25th, 2001, on Atlanta Hill. We're at the property. We've given the number B725-0103. We're down the road, no more than 200 feet from 02, which is up there around the corner. And right down below it, you can see a dump down there. That's what we're going to call 04. We'll get it in a little bit. Now, 03 is an adit right off the road. It's running some water, and we will get a water sample of it. There is, it's not just a spring we walked up in there, you can't see it, but there is an old piece of railing sticking out of the weeds up in there, out of that adit, and you can see up above where it's caved for a ways on back in there. But there's probably a quarter, half a gallon water a minute coming out. Comes down into the road here, kind of starts to disappear in the road. But you can see it flows on down the road a ways, and then this road continues on down the hill. We're going to follow it all the way down around the point to that last property that's down there. So with that, we'll take another look at this caved adit, which is 03, and fade on out for this property. July 25th, 2001. We're looking right up the road that goes up the Yuba River. Right down below us, not more than a quarter of a mile, is Decker Creek. And we're probably pretty close to right above the Yuba Tunnel, as it was called. We're at property. We've given the number B725-0105. It's a relatively small dump and prospect at the end of a long, very narrow and not very good shaped road that comes over from the last adits that we were looking at. And as you look up the hillside here, you can see we can't find an actual adit spot in here. Many of these looks as if they brought a cat in or something and have cut erosion channels, but you can see there's little pits in the area right here. And then we're standing on a relatively small dump. That's all probably maybe 25 feet long, 10 feet wide. But it, like all these things in this steep country, goes down the hill for a fair distance. It's completely dry. As I said, we're out here at the end of the road, so this would be, my guess is the last, well, it's the last prospect we certainly show on the thing. See up there, those trees. There's some small dumps up in there that you can see from probable pits. And actually the top of the ridge, even though we've walked downhill for quite a ways, is not too far up there beyond those stumps. So we're still pretty close towards the top of the ridge on this end. We've got to go back around the other way though and get a water sample and do a couple of other things over in there before we go back up on top this afternoon. Anyway, that's where we are. Well, it's kind of interesting off there. You see that area? We'll zoom in on it. I don't know whether it actually is one or not, but if it looks like it could be a pretty good size dump, or it's just granite slough right up above the Yuba River there on that trail. And with that, I guess, yeah, it looks like maybe down in there there's a actual road that takes you on up in there. We'll ask John about that, see, saw that when because he's going up there today. With that, we'll fade the video on out. And we're going to go back up around a corner and show you all of those first adits that are on the first part of this video. They were actually located on the map in the wrong drainage, which is not too unusual. It's within a quarter of a mile of where they actually were. But we can see them from the road there, and we'll show you what the whole story is on those. So with that, we're going to take a look up the beautiful Yuba River and fade on out. July 25th, 2001, Earl Bennett on the camera. We're giving you an overview of those first 4 adits that we looked at this morning. The problem we ran into is they're actually shown on our map as on the other side of this hill, but there they are. They're in this fairly good, well-developed drainage in here. The white dump up towards the top of the ridge, about 100 feet below the top of the ridge, is B7250101. Now you can see the cut just to the left of it and below. That's some of the drill roads they put in. And then down there in the trees, right in there, you can see a dump. That's the dump for B7250104. And 02 and 03, 02 is just above 04, maybe 60 feet or so. And 03 is down the road from 04 and 02, about 200 feet right on the road. That's the one that's got the water in it. So with that, gives you a good idea, shows you the drainage that it's in. We'll take a still picture of this for these 4. And this should be used as the introduction for those first stations 1 through 4. 5 is down the road, around the corner here, about 500 feet down that road, around the corner, takes us out to 5, which is above the Yuba Tunnel. Now the top of Atlanta Hill, the top of the ridge is right up there. So that kind of gives you a good overview as to where we are on these properties. And with that, we'll fade on out. July 25th, 2001. We're at the property we're calling B7250104. This is the lowest of the 4 adits. It's right below number 2. Number 3 is down the road to the west 150 feet or so from number 2, and it's above us too. So this is the lowermost, well, we're calling an adit now. You're not going to see much more than what you're seeing right now with the camera as they sweep across. You can see there's definitely dump material in here. And I'll show you what it looks up and back in a minute. It's heavily overgrown. I can't see any visible area that there could be an adit. But if you look up above, right behind me, this is the dump for number 2, which certainly looks like it's sitting on top of this material. So, where exactly the adit is in here, we're not quite sure. There is no water anywhere in here, we can tell you that. There is a fairly substantial grassy dump. Not a lot of iron staining on it. It's not impacting any drainages. There's no water running down any of these gulches. And the main adit is right up there at the top of that dump, and as we've already seen, it was also caved. So that's kind of where we are with this group of properties, and this will be the last video in here. Now again, just for review, because there's some confusion on these 4 properties. The first one we looked at is up towards the very top of the ridge. The second one is on the road, right up at the top of these fresher looking dumps. The third one's 150, 200 feet to the road, down the road to the west of the second one. That's number 3, and it's the wet one, the one we're getting the water sample from. And number 4 is the one that is directly below number 2. So that's the way we've numbered them in here. And with that, we'll give you another shot down towards the fresher looking dump material and fade on out. July 25th, 2001, and we're back at the adit that we're going to get the water sample from. It's right in that area right there, and this is where the water went down the road. We've already shown this once. What we wanted to do a little more video on here is to explain that careful examination of one of our other maps has revealed that we are actually on, if we can get it to zero in here, the Atlanta number 2 adits as shown on this map right here. And the map, the adits that we thought were plotted in the wrong place are shown on the other map, and those are actually the Minerva mine, which is right around the point up here. So we're going to finish lunch, get our water sample, and walk on over and see if we can find those adits at the Minerva. But that should kind of clarify things a little bit if this will come into focus a little bit. Anyway, collectively the 4 adits are known as the Atlanta number 2 adits, and they went right into the Atlanta lobe. So with that explanation, we'll fade on out for this segment, and that should be the end for the Atlanta 2 adits. July 25th, 2001, Earl Bennett reporting. We're looking up at where the part of the big Atlanta burn was a couple years ago. See all the logs? We think they've put those in there for erosion control on that hillside. Or else they're in these roads in here on the other side that you can see through the brush here are all new. They're logging roads of some kind, probably for salvage. At any rate, that's not what we're here to see. We're here to see the lower adit of the Minerva mine, which we will give the number B7250106. And as you can see, we're not going to go down to it. It's a big dump. It's about, looks like 60 feet long and probably 20 foot wide at its widest point. And then a lot of material down the hill. I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess on the thickness of it, but a fair amount of material. You can see that the fire definitely burnt some structures down there on the dump. There's some timbers there that may have been part of the old portal, but there's nothing even remotely resembling a portal unless it's that little cave spot that goes up in there. Nothing open, no water coming out. Great overview of that particular dump. Now if you follow that one right on up the hill to the road we're on, there's the next one of the Minerva dumps, and there's supposed to be one around the corner to the left of this picture. It's up a little bit higher. We'll see if we can see it. We will go over and take a look at that one, and we'll get a still picture from down here just for geographic reference sake. You're looking down into Decker Creek, and those 2 roads that you can see down there just behind that big tree are part of the double switchback that shows up so nicely on the topo map on that at that particular spot on Decker Creek. We are now on the Atlanta East quadrangle, just barely, but on the Atlanta East. And we were mistaken on the last video where we said that these are the properties we thought were in the wrong gulch. Actually, there's 2 separate mines. The ones over that we just did were Atlanta number 2, and this is the Minerva mine adits in here. So with that, I think we finally have got this thing all squared away, and with it we'll just go on, take another nice scenic look out across this fantastic country and fade on out. July 25th, 2001. We're at that second working in the Minerva. We will give this the 02 number, B7250107 it would be, sorry, 07 is second adit in the Minerva. As you can see, the dump is right off the main road. This is the road that goes down to the Atlanta number 2. The adit, we think, was probably right in there, although there's quite a slough spot up here by the tree. It could have been anywhere in this hillside. It is now, of course, completely gone. The dump, again, is hard to estimate because the road, as you can see, goes right across where the dump was. That's part of it, laying on the hillside right there. It does not look as if it was as large as that next dump down the hill, which we filmed that from right over there on the corner looking down the hill. So it's about 100 feet, maybe 150 feet below this particular dump. And with that, unless we find higher workings up above us on the Minerva, and the road switchbacks here in a second goes right up there, that's about it for it. So we'll again get you a shot out here of the big burn and fade on out. July 25th. 2001. We've just walked up now from the Minerva mine. It's around down the corner there, maybe 100 yards or so. And the road splits here. One part of the split goes up the hill here, and the other part goes over by this goes around the other side of this like a little island of grassy granite in here. Now there's also an old dump down here, all overgrown and of course and burned. You can see the black spot down there. Now where exactly the adit is, I don't know, but when I was poking around up here I found a rather interesting thing. There's this hole here and somebody has stuck an iron rod in it, as you can see. Well, I came around the other side here and took a look down and I thought, well, this looks like a gopher hole to me. And I chucked a rock down that dude and she bounces for a long way. So this thing is either right above a stope, or the adit cuts under here, or something, but there's some kind of a mine working there. Now, unfortunately all I have is yellow ribbon, so I put it in with the yellow weeds. But on the tree over there I hung 2 yellow ribbons that you should be able to see when you come down that road. Now, the lower road that goes around that island is the one that hooks into the main road that comes around the south side of Atlanta Hill. So that's the first sign of a physical hazard that we've seen up here. We'll see if we can find anything more on this this old dump in here. My guess is that it's long gone, and the dump is, as you can see, except for the fact it's been burned, has got trees growing all over it. So we'll give it a number and write it up, but this may count as the video for that particular property as well. So with that, we'll put the fade on here and give you a shot down the Gopher Glory hole and call it quits. July 25th, 2000, and we're giving an overview here of the Jesse Benton mine, which is up above the Monarch shaft, and it's a kind of a good overview right there. There is those 10 buildings that you can see. We'll zoom in on them there. Have got drill cuttings in them from the drilling operation up here, and that kind of long one that's caved to the left there looks like it was part of the covered portal that went into that main adit in the hillside right behind it. It's all caved in there right now, and the shed to the right of it is full of full of cuttings. But shows you a good overview of that particular property from here. Big dump. And right down below it is the Monarch shaft, and off to the right, through all those cuts up in there, would have been the location of the Last Chance shaft. And let me see, probably some other ones in there. The Silver Tide mine and the Last Chance were the ones right up above the Monarch, and probably have had almost all their workings taken out of there by what was done with part of that open pit in there, which was actually an open pit operation in there a few years ago. That's a good view of that. We're going to head down the other side here to get the last property that we know of that's on the West Atlanta sheet. So with that, we've got that nice overview. Didn't want to pass it up, and we'll fade on out of here. July 25th, 2001. We're at the area that is shown as the Helen Davis claims, pretty close to that. It just shows you the complexity that we've got in an area that's undergoing active exploration. Now, these are old dumps. Some of these are old dumps. That one down there assuredly is. That one right there probably is. And you can see the road cut up above it that comes up here. Now the Atlanta Gold, of course, this is a finer material here, is where they've drilled a hole on this pad, and they've cut pads, you know, or trenches literally all over the place up in here. That's where their hole went down right there. So makes for an interesting area, and of course, since it's been burned, if there was anything that would have remotely have given you a clue, mine timbers, anything like that, are pretty much all gone. So I think up on the top there is where one of the old shafts is. There's a hole full of water, and you drop a rock in it, and it sounds like it's pretty deep. Which one we can make a guess when we get up there, but we'll go up there and set a site there. But you can see down through the trees down through here all the trenches and drill roads that the companies have put in, which have essentially obliterated many of the signs of the old workings. So with that, we'll take a look at what is probably a dump up in there and fade on out. Still July 25th, 2001. We're at the Helen Davis claims that we've given the number B 7250109. And this is the point of attraction, is this what looks like just an old mud hole, except if you chuck a rock in there, and we will do so. Oh, you can see what happens to it. Well, nice chuck. Not very good. We'll chuck another one. They're all small. You can hear that ploop. Sounds like that water might be down there a little ways. Anyway, this is all chopped up in here. This is the dump that we were standing on, or that we were pointing at with the camera before. You can see that white material over there. That's the drill cuttings. That's right where we videoed this spot from. And fair amount of holes in the area, if you will. There was supposed to be some adits in here, but we can see no sign of any adits. The dumps, there's another drill hole right there. Some casing for it. The drill hole, the adits probably have just been obliterated by the new exploration process. Now you can see how iron stained this rock is. We're just right on the trend of the main Atlanta lode right now, and the Monarch is just right over the ATV there, about another quarter of a mile. So we're going to hustle on over there and get some pictures of that. There just is not a lot to say about the Helen Davis. Anyway, whatever this group of claims is that we just mentioned earlier, Helen Davis, I think it is, claims. So with that, we're going to fade on out from over there by the water hole and call it good for this property. It's July 25th, 2001. We're at a shaft which is on the road, which goes from the Monarch to the southwest. past the Buffalo shaft, and then to the Helen Davis group, which is the last stop we were at. By the way, that water at the Helen Davis group is only about 18 inches deep, but it's odd that there's water on the top of the ridge, even that much of it this time of the year in that little pit. So maybe an adit in there instead of a shaft. But this certainly looks like a collapsed shaft, or it's collapsed into somebody's workings, maybe into a stope. It's a pit. Actually, it's a shaft because we know there's some waste material around. It's a pit about 25 feet by 20 feet in diameter, kind of an obloid thing. The dump is not huge, but again, this is the dump that we're looking at here, but the mining company has put a drill pad in over what was probably part of the dump. So we're not quite sure where it is. There's a possibility, as we noted, this could either be the part of the Helen Davis group, or possibly the Buffalo shaft, although I don't think we're quite far enough east for the Buffalo shaft. We have got GPS on it though, and you can see festooned with ribbons throughout the thing. Big tree growing kind of at an angle, or bushes growing at an angle out of it, and no doubt about it, definitely a hazard to folks who are coming up here with snowmobiles and so on. There's one leg of the dump, if you can see it in the sun, cutting out there to the northwest. So not an inconsequential feature for this area. Now the road, which we came down on, is right up above the top of the pit here. So everything's kind of in proximity to one another. There's no samples to take here. The dump is not impinging on anything. So with that, we'll take a look down into the bottom of the pit. We zoom down in there into that tree and fade out. July 25th, 2001, giving you an overview of the main Monarch pit area. This is the gut, if you will, of the surface expression of the Atlanta lode. Is probably about where the center of their open pit would be if they ever get that far. And while I'm fumbling for my map, we can show you can see the orange I'll zoom out here for a second. You can see that orange fencing right in the middle of the frame right there. That's the actual Monarch shaft. And the head frame sat up on that hill right behind it. It was in there just a couple years ago, and there's kind of a loading bin over to the right hand side there in that big open cut. A big open cut, I believe, goes up through where the Last Chance mine was located. And as we noted earlier, the property up to the left up there should be the Silver Tide property, we believe. The Silver Tide mine up there with the buildings. So that kind of gives you a general overview of what the main part of the lode looks like. You can see the granite is highly altered. A lot of oxidation, yellow, orange colors in there. That's good for mineralization. There's a shear zone that cuts right through that area that is the object of attention these days. So with that, we'll fade out and move down the road here a little bit and see if we can find the Buffalo shaft. July 25th, 2001. We're at what may well be a very early exploration adit for the Buffalo mine. The shaft is just down across the way here. Totally overgrown, totally caved, but lots of veggies, little bit of damp spot out here, no water to collect. No visible sign of any dump that's left in here, but again, everything has been so bulldozed and pushed around it's hard to tell. Right down over there we believe is where the Buffalo shaft was located. There's a big hole in the topography anyway. And so we're going to move down there next and get that one. So with that, we're going to not do anything else with this except put it on the map and fade on out. July 25th, 2001. We're at the site approximately of the Buffalo Shaft, and we certainly know there was a shaft somewhere around here, although the Monarch is just up there 150 feet. As you can see, there are reels of flat cable from the hoist laying out here that survived the fire. Not much else did. Everything else was burned, as you can see. Where exactly the hoist sat, I'm not sure from looking at this. Now there is a wooden structure down here. Here's an old-timey hoist bucket. Still full of dirt. And there's a frame structure down here that I don't believe is an adit. I think it's some kind of a loadout platform or something or other is what it looks like to me. Some kind of a loading chute that they would have had for maybe backing the trucks in here or something or other. Not sure, because of the tilted sides on it like that. It's not the shaft, so we're not quite sure what it is, again, that we're looking at in here. There's hardly anything left. Now, you can see again how hard it is in this granite country. You get this whole thing in here, this all looks like it could possibly be dump material in here in this grassy granite. I don't think it is. Over here you can see there's all kinds of timbers. Those are probably for underground. Certainly they were cut on the ends for setting together underground, as you can see on that one. So from Vicky's history, we will try to piece together a little better as to where some of this stuff was. Now, the interesting thing to us, though, is, again, with the fire in here, it's taken out obviously a whole lot of this area in here. This is in the shear zone, so again, very difficult to tell waste piles from just regular erosion along gullies and so on. Flat cable hoist. Up above us is the open pit, as it was so called, and the Monarch shaft is right on the top, flat up there, right about where that log is with the new cut end on it. So, again, not a whole lot that we can say about this particular property right now. We're going to walk down over through there. You can see the ATV and see if we can find maybe where the Buffalo Shaft was located to get a better picture of it. But with that, we'll let you ponder on the significance of this wooden structure and fade out of here. Hey, it's July 26th, 2001. It's a Thursday. We're standing at a mine dump that is labeled, at least on the topo map, as the Minerva, but we don't think it is. We think it's the lower adit, the main adit for the Alaska mine. The Minerva should be over further to the west from us. We're looking at what's left of this property after the fire went through. As shown on the topo maps, there were several buildings on this dump. We're just off. This is the access road that we're looking here that comes across the main dump. That road, it comes off of about, down around the corner there just a little ways is the main road that snakes all the way on down into Decker Creek. You can see what the effects were of the fire in here. We'll slowly start. We're looking to the west now and slowly going across the dump. Any of these buildings obviously in here that all that's left is tin. And to the open adit, or at least open from where we are right now, we're standing on the nose of the dump, but it actually isn't the true nose because the road down below us, the access road to the property, cuts right across the dump. But this gives you an idea of the size of the dump from the layout. There was another burned building right on the east side of the property over here. Which is, as you can see down there, level that little shed or whatever it was. And now we're back looking down again off where we're standing, down to the road and the tin, and you can see the front of the dump across the road over there. So undoubtedly in this adit substantial workings. Now we're going to turn it off for a second and we're going to walk on over to the adit and take a look at it. So we'll fade on out, looking out into the big burn area to the south of us here. Okay, we're right up at the adit now. It has a board. This is recently timbered in here. It's got a board across it that says what's left of danger on it. And we'll zoom in the back. We can't see anything with the sun angle where we are as to how open this is, but my guess is doesn't look as if it's sloughed up above it on the hill, so that you could probably get access into here pretty easy. Now we turn around and look, there's a good marker for you. There's a piece of a rail sticking out of the ground right to the east of the adit, about 25 feet or so. And a scan across what is left of the, probably was a tin-covered portal that was in here. Whether Atlanta Gold or Twin Gold as it now is actually did the work in here or not, we don't know, but this is obviously was not done too long ago. We should be able to find out for sure what property we're actually standing on here. So, but big workings in here. Once again, we'll give you a slow scan out across the dump from right in front of the adit. And now we're going to walk down and we'll pace off the rest of this dump. And that will color pretty good for what we're quite certain is the Alaska mine. It's July 26th, year 2001. We're not exactly sure what we're at here. We're very close to the locality that Ted shows an adit that wasn't on other maps that we've got. We're right down here, very close to Flint Creek, and the trail that goes up Flint Creek back up the hill is right across the way there. I'll just scan this. There's not much to write up. It's a great big flat area that I should start up on the hill, I guess. It's easy to find because there's a garbage, the back end of a garbage truck sitting up there on the hillside. There's a forest boundary marker right there to the right of the garbage truck. This is the road that comes on into this site. When you're here, there's a big flat area with a barrel and a 55-gallon drum empty sitting out there in the middle. Down over, right over in there, you can see where there was a building. It burned totally to the ground. There's nothing but cinders left of it. And if you move over to this would be the southeast of this flat area, there's two that look like ponds down here. You can see there's one right here. There's a berm between this one here and a littler, smaller pond over there on that side. And this is just down Flint Creek, as you can see. You can see the water shining on it. I'll shade this thing for you. You can see the water right through there in Flint Creek. So we're just off the creek. There's the Flint Creek Trail, as it's called, which goes back up on the top of the mountain here. And I just pan around. That's kind of it. There is absolutely no sign of an adit that I can see in here anywhere. And with that, we're going to just go ahead. These ponds, I can give you a distance on these. This is probably from here, this pond, which would be the northernmost one's probably 80 to 90 feet across, and the smaller one's probably 30 feet. Actually, that's 80, 90 feet long, 30 feet long. And you can see the width across there. It's probably 25 feet across the big pond, and a little less for the small pond. This big flat area in here is probably about an acre, I guess, in size. And with that, we're going to move on. We will give it a site num, which will be B7260101. So, and with that, we'll focus on the garbage dumpster and fade on out. July 26, 2001. We're at a very small adit up above Flint Creek, probably 200 feet or so. Obviously this area was burned. They've got some erosion control devices that they've put in. This is where the adit was located. Come back and we'll take a look at the dump. We've given this the site num of B7260102. We're back at about where the beginning of the adit would have been, and showing you the very small dump. The dump is probably 20 feet long, maybe 25 feet wide out to the nose, and as you can see, not all that thick, probably about 7-8 feet thick on an average throughout that whole area. So probably a couple hundred feet of workings from where we are. Certainly not any way that we're going to get into any of the veins that are exposed along the Atlanta lode. So let me see. There's a. No, I think it's just a burned log. Anyway, the fire did its thing. We're looking down the nose of the dump here. I'm standing right out on the end of it, and we'll look back and fade out on where the adit was. July 26, 2001. Just happened to be coming down the road and thought we could get a nice overview on video of the town of Atlanta, which is down below us. You can see the airstrip out there to the, I guess that's the airstrip. No, the airstrip's over there to the right. The big lodge that you see down in there was built a few years ago. They were going to have a big development up here, and it never happened. I guess for $1 million or so you can buy that lodge today. And then down below us, somewhat in the trees, and we're going to walk kind of along slowly because there's a different break up here in the burn. You can kind of get a view of the small hamlet of Atlanta. The big tailings pond, which we'll try to get some video of, that there was a problem with a couple years ago when part of it washed out, is off to the right of this picture a little bit. And we could probably get some good video from down around the corner of that. But just gives you kind of a good rolling picture here of what the town looks like. And you can see by the burn that we're standing in, they were pretty concerned about losing that whole town. You can see the fire here burnt right down. Burnt right down the ridge, and then started heading on down into town. So it could have been pretty serious for them. So with that, we'll fade on out of a good overview of Atlanta. Okay, it's July 26, 2001, and we're at what is probably the Silver Tide mine, although that is right next door to the Benton mine, which was the older producer in the area. We're up above the Monarch shaft a couple of 100 feet, and we wanted to start here because there is a caved adit, and this was where Atlanta Gold was apparently using or storing some of their drill cuttings. There are two small sheds up here, and we're looking inside one of them right now. You can see the sacks of drill cuttings. Apparently this building was probably part of a covered portal that ran back here a ways, and it's all collapsed back to the adit, which is open. Now it's open to there anyway. It probably looks like it's caved right in back of the timbers. Well, maybe not. Let's take a look to see if we can get over there without falling into the portal. Yeah, she's caved right there, and you can see the timbers from the cover on the portal come down, and they go right out under. They were covered with tin, and then they go down to that little shack that's got the drill cuttings in it. Now right next to that fallen down, or almost fallen down shack, is another one right here, and it also has drill cuttings in it. A lot of flotsam and jetsam scrap iron, some perforated steel plate, a couple pieces of pipe, obviously lots of tin, and this is the size of this little building that is left. And we'll sketch this all out, but in the video you can see here, indeed they've got, let's look like drill cuttings in here. And the road up into here is excellent. Now, if you proceed over to that direction over there, about 200 feet, you're into the big Monarch cut. And I'll just walk over there. Here's the other side of that building. You can see again all kinds of drill cuttings in there. We'll walk over here a little ways and kind of keep it pointed on down to towards the Monarch area. And we'll walk down that road and get some shots back down over the edge when we get done doing our measuring and so on. But that area right down below us, right down there, you can't see it through the trees, is where the Monarch shaft is located. So with that, we'll kind of give you an overview of what came out of this adit. It was a big dump. Looks pretty big anyway. If all the white material is waste rock, there's a considerable volume in here, and of course we're right on or very close to the main Atlanta lobe, so this was one of the producers. Oh, I should point out there's an ore loading platform right there with a road down below it, so they probably pull their trucks in. On the road coming in here, I passed an old tram station. We'll see if we can get get a still picture or two of that on the way out. If Ted doesn't get it, he probably will. So with that, we'll look off towards the northwest and fade on out for this segment. July 26th, 2001. We're standing at the top of the open cut above the Monarch mine. So you can see a grizzly down there that they used for, I believe, probably for sizing the material that came out of this big cut. We've walked over from, you can see those white dumps over there. That was the last property that we looked at, which was B726-0103. That's got the 2 buildings on it and the covered caved adit. We'll walk over and get a shot back at that. But we just wanted you to take a look at this the big pit. You still can't quite see the Monarch shaft. That's amazing. It's right over the edge of that grizzly right there, right down below those trees. It's got orange flagging all around it. But we'll scan up the cut. Now, as best as we can tell, many of the last chance adits were in this cut, and you can see timbers and so on. I have no idea if those are for the adits. You can see there's a series of cables that are strung across this cut. Exactly what they were there for, whether they had a tram or something that they used to, see if we can get one of those cables. We might be able to see it there where it cuts through the trees, and there's another one down below it. So this is it actually shows up better from those pictures we took yesterday, which were taken from up there on the other side, just on that ridge up there, in an open spot, actually just behind the big tree, of course. So we're looking down from here, right up through there, through essentially the center of the Atlanta lobe. Now this area right in here would have been, if the open pit had gone in, this whole area in here would have been one of the first pit, and the area, I believe, just on the other side of the ridge, maybe to the top of the ridge, would also have been the second pit. So we've taken out a whole bunch of these workings, and indeed that may someday happen. So at least we're getting documented what's here at this particular time. Now we'll walk along this little road here, and I'll get a picture of back over at B726-0103. That's the loading dock that comes right below the adit. You can see the kind of the gray color of the dumps, and of course we've got good video of this complex from across the way. There's the buildings. That's the collapsed adit that you see coming into view. And that kind of gives you a good semi-distance overview of what's there. And there's the collapsed adit and the little building right next to it. And my bike is sitting on the upper part of the dump, with the lower road that splits onto it right over there down in the lower part. So they've cut the dump kind of in half. But you can see by any standard it's a significant dump. So I guess with that probably just about beats the Monarch and the open cut above it to death. We'll finish up in here with a few still pictures. Go up the top of the hill, see if there's any chance any adits that are shown might still be up there. And then we will probably, we will go down. We know we will go down to the Monarch shaft and finish up down there. So with that, we'll take a shot through the center of the Atlanta lode and fade on out. July 26th, 2001. We're on the main road to the Monarch mine. We're looking at a caved dry adit right above the road. Must be an old real timer. Look at the size of the trees, and I think those are definitely have been growing on the dump. They're all over the thing. Dump is probably 25 by 25 overall. It's kind of a slightly irregular shape, but it goes all the way down to the main road, which is right down there. So that's probably at least 85-90 feet thick. So a fair amount of material came out of here. Oh, just for reference, there's a piece of pipe laying there on the dump, but that's pretty much it. So that's where the adit is, behind those trees. As we kind of scan around, you can see hadn't been any activity on this dude for quite a while. Now we're in between the roads. This is the main road that goes into the Monarch mine, and the road that goes into the workings right north and above the Monarch is right up here on this hillside up there, about another 200 feet, and that also is where the tram line, we've got some pictures of the tram towers. The tram line from the original Monarch went across through here and then down Quartz Creek and down to Atlanta. So with that, not much else to do here. We'll fade on out and call it good for this property. It's July 26, 2001. We're at a property we're calling B726-0107. It's just down below the road, about 50 feet on the main road onto the Monarch mine. It's a caved dry adit with an overgrown dump, and as you can see, there's pieces of what are tram cable laying on the dump, so it must have gone right across the top of this area. Not a very large dump. You can see we're kind of scanning around it here. We've got the dimensions on the card. And but what is kind of interesting is there's a steel corner post here, which makes it pretty obvious. And we'll give you a shot of the directions on the claim marks here. We wrote those down so that hopefully they'll come out on the video. I don't know if that's any better or not. Pretty herky post. Probably had a claim notice in the top, but the cap's on so tight you can't get it off. Anyway, pretty heavily overgrown. Little tree in the area. Hasn't had anything done on this thing for a long time. And we're looking down the dump. Oh, we estimate it's probably about 40-45 feet thick on the nose. And it's not impinging on anything, so it's not going anywhere. So, and look through the green veggies off to the brown burn veggies. We'll fade on out. It's July 26, 2001. We're up at the Monarch mine, and we're videoing the site of the Monarch shaft, which, as you can see, has got a orange safety fence around it. I just talked to a couple guys that are doing logging up here, and they say they're probably going to have a contract to fill this shaft in here before too long. You can see we don't know exactly what's happening up here, but along the road you're starting to get a failure along this little approach road that comes up on the dump behind the shaft. The hoist works used to sit right over in there, and we've got the picture where the trestle is. You can see the concrete footings of where it was mounted, and essentially the dump from the shaft is what they're using for their log landing out here, and you can see it's a pretty good sized area. There's probably no reason to try to make estimates of this. It's probably on the order of 50 feet thick. Now if we turn around directly in back of us, we're looking at it, open at it, and this is right at the base of the big open cut that we've talked about before on the video. You can look in, we can see it looks like it's at least partially caved. We'll let the camera do its magic and see if we can see anything back in there. Again, it looks like a relatively new adit that's been put in. Now if we walk over to the side and we look up, there's the big cut that we filmed this morning. You can see the loadout ramp right there, and then the cables that we mentioned that are stretched across the open cut, most of which go through the last chance workings, we think, the old last chance workings. And if we walk over to the other side, which would be to the northeast, we're looking at those white dumps, again, that we were videoing this morning, that have the two buildings on it and the storage sheds for the drill cuttings that are in here. With this just about takes care of all of the upper workings that we're aware of in this area, and we're about to start on down Quartz Creek, which has a number of workings, and we'll work our way from the top on down to the bottom on that. So we fade on out of here with pretty good video looking down where we're headed, which is down the road that takes us to Quartz Creek. Okay, it's July 26th, 2001. We're at what is probably one of the early workings of either the Monarch or the old Buffalo mine. It sits right down, we've just started down Quartz Gulch. You can see the big cut up there, the Monarch shaft right at the bottom of it. This is the road that goes down Quartz Gulch, and this is a large dump. The adit is still here. What's left of it. It was boarded up. It's got a huge tree growing above it, which probably, well, big tree, but it's caved further in there. Good nails, round nails, so probably in the 30s maybe, I don't know, not too old. From there, if we look around, we can see it is indeed a substantial dump. Now about 30 feet to the west of the adit, right along the edge of the dump, is an old building that's fallen down, as you can see there. There's a piece of PVC on the dump, but that's the end of the dump down there. And it swings way out. Right in the middle of the dump, or pretty close to it, is a well that's been put in, monitoring well. And there's a loading ramp out there on the north end of the dump. It continues on around and butts right up to the road that goes on down Quartz Creek. And there's an old, looks like a tin shed or something here that's fallen down. So this is the next workings. Now these would be essentially below the, what we think is the dump for the Monarch shaft up above. And as we walk over, we can see we've got a pretty good thickness on this dump. Probably on the order on the nose of 20 feet anyway. Close up of the loading bin and the road that continues to truck on down Quartz Gulch. And as you look at the front of the dump, there's some old timbers and so on laying along there. We'll pace this dump off out into the ore chute. Now we're going to walk on over to this other end of the dump and look off, because there's another building, also collapsed, but nevertheless a building, off on the west end of this dump. You can see here where they had the timbers laid to put their rails on, bring the ore out onto this little projection of the dump out here. And a little more dump. It's pretty good size. And just up around, now this is this little spur road. There's the main road, goes down Quartz Gulch, and you can see there's a little spur road that goes around and goes up the side of the mountain about another, maybe half a mile. We think all of this is part of the dump from this thing. These are old, those timbers over there are all rails, or that held the rails that came out of here. So there was a lot of workings out of this this particular adit, assuming that's the only adit that this dump represents. So they get pretty jumbled up in here, especially with these old workings. Now right up above us there, that's the road that we were on that takes you around over to the Monarch and the Last Chance in the open pit up there. So we definitely want reasonably good coverage on this dump. It's big. You can see the mining company did some work in here. They've actually bermed this area, and they've got a piece of PVC that's probably a drain that was to contain, must get a little bit of water out of the adit in the early spring, but there certainly isn't anything coming out of it now. It's dry as dry can be. And we're kind of looking back at it right now. There's the adit sits right over there in the back of my pack up in there. So with that, we'll take a look at the adit and fade on out for this property. Well, it's July 26, 2001, and we're still at B 07260010. We found a second adit on the same level with this dump, so the dump apparently is shared by two adits, a real old one and this one not quite so old, and it's got cold air coming out of it, so it looks like it's open. You can see the tin, there's tin on it. Somebody's torn it off. Fairly new looking timbers. Again, this one headed right towards the main gut of the Atlanta lode. So it would be heading, I guess, to essentially almost due south. And as I turn around and look and show you, you can see there's some water comes out of this. This may be although the pond is uphill from this. See, there's some veggies growing out here. No flowing water now, it's just barely damp. But obviously it wasn't too long ago that there was a little bit. Woodwork, pieces of timbers laying around on the ground. Now to show you where we are, there's a little tin fallen down building and the well out in the middle of the dump. And the adit is right over there. Just, you can probably see that's the fallen down shack, and so it's about 5 feet this side of that fallen down shack is where that second adit goes into the hill. And it looks like it probably is an older one. So we're getting a good view from here of the entire dump. Was probably serviced by two adits. So that partially explains why it is so very large. With that, we're going to put the video camera down and we'll get a couple still photos of the second adit. Turn around, we can take a look back. Again, you can see its proximity. There's the big cut at the Monarch, the road that comes down Quartz Creek from the Monarch shaft. And you zoom on in there. There's the adit that we were just looking at. Okay, so with that, we'll fade her on out on showing you the relative positions. July 26, 2001, and we're looking at the old Talachee Tailings impoundment. This is the one that had the big blowout a few years ago and washed a whole bunch of stuff down into the middle fork of the Boise River. It's been engineered, resculptured, and so on so that it won't happen again. But we thought we'd take a nice look at it from up above, and then a nice scenic shot of the sawtooth sitting over there on the other side of the hill, on the other side of the Montezuma Fault. Pretty spectacular looking. And the town of Atlanta is just over there through the trees, and we videoed it this morning. So that kind of gives you an overview of how big those tailings were from the Talachee. Most of this material has came out of the 900 level or the 600 level of the mine. do several previous iterations, but you can kind of see, I assume that there is where it went out and then down into the drainage that way. And this kind of pond-shaped thing here, I believe, is what failed. The white part in the foreground. So with that, we'll fade on out of the Talachee tailings and head on down the ridge. It's Friday, July 27th, 2001, and we're actually videoing what was the old Monarch mill site in Atlanta. There's only a couple buildings left. They're used as residences now. But it was on this flat. This is the first house on the right as you come into Atlanta. There's the sign right there that says you're entering the town. Gives you an idea of what's there. And we'll just kind of slowly zoom over that for you. The tramway came down here and dropped the ore off. If I swing across the road, you'll see a big flume, which probably went to the original generator in the town. And if we walk down a little bit farther, we're looking at some old mining equipment or generator equipment, probably, if it was originally used. Of course, they've got a new system. We're going to walk over here and take a look over the edge, and you can see the size of the old Monarch tailings impoundment. Now, we believe that there were several mills that were in this particular part of Atlanta, including the Monarch mills and, let's see, what's another one here? The Greenback mill, the Greenback mill was just about where the Forest Service encampment is, over to the north and east of us a little bit. This obviously is the footings for the old Monarch mill that we're looking at in here, or part of it anyway. These big granite blocks that they so painstakingly cut. And there's more modern footings for something else. It's right down through there. And right out in front of it is the old tailings impoundment. Ted's coming back in next week. He will get some samples out of this. But you can see certainly those light colored material, there's not bothering the wildlife too much, as you can see. Nice shot of a little muley standing there looking at us. And his buddies just going across the creek over there. Anyway, pretty good size acreage of mill tailings in here that could be a problem. And we'll scan back across that. The South Fork drainage is on the other side of that field. I mean, the middle fork of the Boise is on the other side of that field. So we're looking over quite a bit of historical stuff in here. You can see the old foundations. Look like they had brought water power in, probably. Maybe that flume was water power that was brought into the mill. I bet that's what it was, not for the generator that ran some of that equipment down in there. Whatever it was. But piles of timber, but definitely a substantial structure or structures in this particular area, right here at the mill site. Now up on the dump, or where the mill originally was, there's some old pieces of equipment. Electric motors, not sure what that thing is, whether it's a generator or could be a generator. Mainly water control things, looks like, of some sort. Anyway, pieces of equipment that I am not familiar with. So that's it for the Monarch mill site. So we'll shoot back over. You can see the two houses that we were at right before, and we're going to fade on out for this segment. July 27th, 2001. We're in downtown Atlanta, just about in the heart of the city. We're focused right on the Beaver Lodge, which is where we stayed when we were here. And right behind the lodge over in there was another one of the mills, and I'm not sure which one it was. But according to the lady that owned it, her house, which is, oh, not those newest ones, but out in back there a little ways, was a mill site. I'm not sure it's over in that area or not. But we're going to just take kind of a gentle swing around the town, give you an idea of its flavors. It's got two streets. This is the Atlanta Club, which is now closed. A neat old building, which I'm sure has, oh, sorry about that. I'm going to go, we'll swing on back and do that with a zoom, right? Okay, there's the Beaver Lodge. And we're looking to the north, more or less, across the front of the Atlanta Club. And a rather interesting little building next to it. Some of the home sites up in here. That's the end of town up there. This road right in front of us here, if you turn right, takes you up Quartz Gulch, which is goes on up to the mines up on the top of the hill. Here's the hub, which is recently opened, and again some of the just structure of the place. From the top of that hill over to that hill is Quartz Gulch, with most of the properties up towards the top of it. Here's the Whistle Gulch, or Whistle Stop Cafe as it's called, and back down to the Beaver Lodge. So that kind of gives you a general flavor of town. There's two streets, the one right down there where that blue pickup is, and then the one that comes up by the Beaver Lodge and swings on up through here. So we'll zoom in on the Beaver Lodge and fade on out for this segment. July 27th, 2001. We're looking at, we think, the area where the tailings blew out and came down across into this area. We don't exactly see where they would have gotten into the river. Could have been down over here to the left, but a great huge open area. We're videoing it, so when we actually do find out what it is in here, we'll have an understanding. It's obviously all been smoothed over. They've put a bunch of old stumps down on this end for erosion control. And my guess is that it probably went right on over and through there and down into the tributaries into the river that way, but I don't know that for sure. At any rate, we'll scan back over it relatively slowly, and whatever it is, we'll call her quits for there. July 27th, 2001. We're looking at what is the new front of the Talachee Tailings impoundment that we videoed from up on the hill the other day. This is the one that blew out, went down and caused some problems down along the middle fork. We're looking down along the trace, I guess, of where the mud went. And just over the top of of my machine down there is a pond, which is I think a sump for water that comes in across the tailings, and you can see they've rip-wrapped what look like channels, or I assume like French drains, that come down off the top to drain the top of the tailings impoundment. And it comes down here over the top. We'll see if we can get a shot of the impoundment here. See the beautiful sawtooths out there this morning. Sun just coming up. Well, sun's been up for a little bit, but just getting into good photo light. And you can see the sump that they built. And my guess is that the tails probably went out and went right down over the edge. Now what that big area was we just videoed, it had all the tree stumps in it, I don't know, unless it's a disposal site for some of the tails that they took out of this area, but I don't know that for sure. Now we're looking back up at the front of what's left of the dam, and you can see the recontouring that went on, and I think the video that we shot from up on the hill the other day shows us the top part of the dam about as well as we can. So with that, we'll fade on out with a shot of what gets me around and does all the work. July 27th, 2001. We're now looking at the upper tailings from the Talachee tailings dump, and you can see that it has been topsoiled and revegetated or vegetated, and my guess is that this topsoil came from that big scraped area that we videoed earlier. Down below you can see the white tailings area shows up so nicely from up on top of the hill. And down below that is the sump. So there's actually a series of like 3 of them here. This part, then the white area down there, and then the lower little tails and the sump down there. Was used as a dump for lots of things, as you can see. These were probably all thrown out there on the tailings impoundment. They had to take them off of here when they went out to do the rehab work after the big tailings dam blowout of a few years ago. So anyway, that's a good view of Talachee tailings. Even with what's left, you can see there was a significant amount of production out of this property, and produced a lot of tailings. And is still a money maker, I guess, in some ways for people. And with that, we're going to fade out of the tailings pile.